Has Pixar lost their magic? I know that's kind of a spicy thing to even suggest, but seriously, has any of the recent Pixar films hit as hard as Ratatouille, WALL-E, Inside Out? I mean, I personally don't think that Luca, Lightyear, or Turning Red can hold a candle to either of those films. And that's not to say that those films aren't any good, they're just not on the same level. But maybe the tides are about to change, because Pixar's next film looks like it's gonna be straight up fire. Pun intended. Elemental is the title, and I touched on it briefly in a recent video, but I thought we should dig a little deeper on what this film is actually going to be. So let's dive into it. Elemental will be the 27th animated feature from Pixar, and it's set to come out this June. And according to a short synopsis on Pixar's website, this is what the film is going to be about. In a city where fire, water, land, and air residents live together, a fiery young woman and a go-with-the-flow guy are about to discover something elemental. How much they actually have in common. Now, in the first teaser for the film, we're introduced to our two main characters. Ember Lumen, the fire element, played by Leah Lewis, and Wade Ripple, the water element, played by Mamoudou Athie. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that name, that's a hard name. Anyways, the idea of these anthropomorphized elements are very much in line with some of the early Pixar films. You know, many of the early Pixar films are kind of based around this question of, what if this thing had feelings? What would this thing be thinking about if it was alive? The most obvious examples of this are, of course, Toy Story and Cars. Like, what would the toys care about if they had feelings? What would cars think about if they were alive? We also kind of see this with films like A Bug's Life, Monsters Inc., and Ratatouille. All of the characters in those films are, of course, alive. I mean, if you believe in monsters. But the films all still have this wondering feeling of what society must be like for these creatures that we can't really talk to. What's the most important thing to an ant? What are the monsters under our bed afraid of? What do rats dream of? The point I'm trying to make is that Elemental seems to have this same energy of giving feelings to something that doesn't normally have feelings and wondering what life would be like for those things. Now, it also very much looks like Elemental will be a love story. To me, it kind of seems like it's gonna be a new take on the classic Romeo and Juliet story. Two different people who can't or shouldn't be together, who fall in love anyway. With that said, I don't think it's actually going to be the same story as Romeo and Juliet. I definitely don't think the new Pixar movie is going to end like Romeo and Juliet. But let's talk a bit about the people behind this film. Specifically one person. Because Elemental will be written and directed by Peter Sohn, who's actually been at Pixar for a long time. He's had a lot of different jobs at Pixar, and he even voiced Remy's brother Emile in Ratatouille and the robot cat Socks in Lightyear. However, the only feature film he's written and directed before Elemental was The Good Dinosaur. And I know that The Good Dinosaur has its fans. I learned that the last time I talked shit about that movie. I just didn't like it that much. I definitely think it's one of the weakest Pixar films. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Elemental has to be bad as well. I mean, God, if we judged everyone on the first thing they made, no one would ever be allowed to make something again. I certainly wouldn't want all of you to judge me solely on my first YouTube video. And it actually sounds like the story behind Elemental is quite a personal story to Peter Sohn. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Sohn stated, "I'm quite emotional about getting the characters and the story out for sure. This movie is about thanking your parents and understanding their sacrifices. My parents both passed away during the making of this thing, and so it's hugely emotional and I'm still processing a lot of it. And that gives me a lot of hope for this film. It's not always a guarantee, but stories very often get better when we tell the ones that are near to our own lives and our own hearts. And it sounds like that's what Sohn is doing here. And as you can probably gather from that quote, the film will also somehow be about the characters' relationships with their parents. And I think that makes a lot of sense. We've already talked about how this film is about two opposites who fall in love and start dating. And I think a lot of people can recognize how bringing someone you're dating who might be culturally or ethnically different from your family home to meet your parents can create a lot of tension. Sohn himself has said that one of the experiences that inspired this film was when he married someone who wasn't Korean like him, and the culture clash that created. I imagine we might see Ember have a clash with her parents when they learn that she started dating a guy made of water, whom they probably see as quite dangerous. Perhaps rightfully so. And that sort of leads me into talking a bit about the world in which Elemental takes place. The teaser gives us a short introduction to Element City. It's this bustling metropolis in which the people of the four elements all live together. Peter Sohn has talked about how one of the things that they sort of wanted to introduce in this teaser is the fact that Element City is built on a water infrastructure. For instance, in the teaser we see that the train is running on a canal. That's because the water elements were the first to show up in the city, so they sort of formed the city. They were then followed by the land elements and then wind. So the fire elements were actually the last to arrive in the city, a city that at that point really wasn't designed for them. So you can see why the fire elements might find it dangerous to walk about in the city. It's definitely not without danger to be made of fire and live in a city that runs on an infrastructure of water. That's also why Ember lives in a smaller town or part of the city where mostly other fire elements live. My guess is that the fire town in which Ember lives is probably inspired by something like Koreatown in New York, seeing as Peter Sohn himself is Korean. But I'm honestly really excited to see more of Element City. It looks a lot like a blend between Disney's Zootopia and Pixar's Inside Out. And I can't wait to see how these elements live and interact with each other. Like I said, the film is set to come out in June, and I'll probably be back with a reaction once we get a full trailer. But for now, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you think Pixar's on the right track with this film? Are you looking forward to watching Elemental? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and feel free to subscribe to the channel if you want more videos from me. But with that said, that's pretty much all I had for today. My name is Martin Riise. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care and so long.